Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of Receivables Roundtable. Today, I'm here with my good friend Jim Beck, who is the Chief Growth Officer for Quanta Credit. How you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing well, Adam. How about yourself?
I can't complain. It's another day here in paradise in South Florida. I really appreciate you coming on today. I've been excited to have you on, one, because getting to know you over the past couple of years at the conferences has been a lot of fun. But two, it sounds like you guys are doing some really incredible things. And I've been hearing rumblings in the industry about how interesting the technology is that your team is working on. But before we jump into that, let's take a step back. I know I've had the opportunity to meet you at 1,000 conferences over the past couple of years, but for anybody who has not been as lucky as me, could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got into the seat you're in today?
Yeah, and I'm not sure I know how it happened, but now I'm considered an old head in the industry, I think is what they call it. So I've been in the collection space for probably close to 25 years now, primarily running operations for large collection agencies and a large creditor at the beginning of my career. And ultimately, I'm pretty passionate about the collection industry and have made a long career out of it.
Absolutely. Now, you've been kind of an operations focused guy through the years too, right? So your expertise has really been in kind of that ops from a calls, from a creditor, from a call center perspective. How has that journey been for you?
Yeah, I've always taken a lot of pride and really enjoyed trying to find the most efficient way to run an operation. Like, how can you get the most out of any operation with the least amount of resources? And that's been 20 years of trying to figure out the best way through analysis, segmentation, through the right work staff and the right workforce management to build the most efficient operation possible. And it's been pretty exciting.
Well, your reputation precedes you in terms of operations. I've had the pleasure of hearing you speak at a number of different conferences, which is why I'm so interested to learn a little bit more about Quanta Credit. So as you've gone through your career path, earlier this year, you find yourself at Quanta Credit. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do there.
Yeah, so a lot of my career had been focused around people. Now it's focused around digital communications. And so at Quanta, we have a platform for digital communications and digital collections that is really reducing operating expense by moving a lot of the collections process that were people into digital engagement. And it's really combining analytics and marketing with the collection space. And it's really exciting.
So that's a super interesting piece, right? Marketing is obviously a big part of where I spend my time and my energy. And, my master's is in marketing. So I love it. And, I want to say it was like towards the end of last year, and you might even have been at the conference. I want to say it was at the, like the TransUnion conference in the I want to say early September.
Yep.
But when we were at that conference, somebody made the statement that debt collection online is basically e-commerce. And when we start looking at it that way, we're going to start being more successful. Come a few months later, I see you make the move from the people side to the technology side. And I'm going, am I going to get left behind here? So was that intentional? Was that something that you were kind of, nosing around in and kind of looking at that structure and saying, hey, maybe there is a better way for these online pieces?
Yeah, I think anybody that's spent more than 5 minutes with me has heard me say that not just online collections is becoming marketing, but when I started in this industry, it was more, almost a hammer approach to trying to get people to pay. And that shifted dramatically. And a long, long time ago it shifted. And so it became marketing in its own way, where agents on the phone are really marketing to customers to pay their bill and present those options. And so now it's expanding it into, the way that every customer communicates daily, and that's really online. And so building that into the collection model makes total sense. And so I felt like collections has moved in that marketing space for a long, long period of time. And now it's really where the customer sentiment has shifted. The collections industry needs to shift pretty quickly along the lines with it.
Well, I think, a couple of years ago, you started seeing everybody move towards the Omnichannel approach, right?
Biggest buzzword out there for a while.
For a long time, right?
Yeah.
But now we're starting to hear more about the Optichannel approach and a
Yep.
better understanding of not just the ability to carry context of a conversation across chat, email, text, or over the phone, but the ability to find the right channel to communicate with somebody at the right time,
That's right.
right? And so, talk to me a little bit about what you've seen in terms of that evolution or that movement from the Omni to the Opti world.
Well, the first thing I'll tell you, Adam, is the labeling is
Mhm.
trailing the what's actually happening.
Okay.
So for a long period of time, everybody was talking about omni-channel when they were really doing multi-channel.
Okay.
And so, which is interesting. And that is where the channels aren't necessarily connected and they're just, they're emailing, they're texting, they're calling, and it's just a scattershot approach.
Sure.
And then everyone said, well, we're doing, Opti-channel. And what they were really doing is omni-channel. They were starting to build some connections between those platforms. However, they weren't taking into account the behavioral analytics from the
Mhm.
customer or taking into account the actions that the customer took behind the scenes as well, opens,
Mhm.
things like that. Truly moving to that Opti channel is you've got that right message at the right time. And so at Quanta, we really started at behavioral analytics
Okay.
and built behavioral analytics as the backbone of the organization. Then layer on top an analytics approach based on what the customers are actually doing. And then you pick that right opti-channel approach by getting the optimum outreach with the right content based on that behavioral marketing and behavioral research to get the right message to the right person at the right time. And that's really when we talked about efficiency earlier, where you
Mhm.
find those efficiencies in your operation.
Well, it's very interesting. So, once you've got that communication, you found the right methodology or the right channel, and the content piece is king, right? The A B testing, better understanding what messages to send to the right people. I mean, that's a whole science in and of itself. So, how have you guys kind of addressed the ability to understand this person needs this message and that person needs that message? Is it like A B testing? Is it, what's kind of some of the processes that you're going through to perfect your craft?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. So it starts really with having a marketing department. And so I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that marketing isn't something that you can just sit down and do. And we have a lot of great people in the collections industry that are not marketers. They're
Mhm.
great operators. They're great at managing people. They're great at a lot of things, but not necessarily marketing. So at Quanta, we become that marketing arm for a lot of the people in the collection space, both at the issuers and at the agency space. Then the analytics arm, where you create the A B testing, where you create the optimum strategy based on the actual results that are occurring,
Mhm.
then that's the other need that we fulfill for issuers and agencies alike. So I do think it starts at the marketing side of things and doing customer research and understanding how to speak to customers in a way that they want to be spoken to, building a marketing campaign around it, and then analyzing it and adjusting that analysis to change your strategy as those results come in.
Well, I think the the ability to measure marketing over time has become a major thing. And so we've always looked at marketing as kind of like clicks and things like that. But I feel like there's new opportunities for measurement here in terms of engagement. I know from our perspective in building websites and things, we're constantly looking at heat maps. Where are people clicking and why? How frequently are they clicking there? How far are they scrolling, right? The
Right.
finite measurements that are there enable us to create more of a frictionless environment in moving the consumer from a communication and into an actual payment, a payment module, or even getting them on the phone, depending on their preferred channel. So, what does that side of the world look like for you guys? They get the message, they receive the communication, they interact with that communication. How are you then working with them to either build a payment plan or get them to make that payment and engage them in the process beyond just responding to a communication?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And you've got now two, I think, two spots on your buzzword bingo card. So I think I heard frictionless in there as well. So you can mark that one off the list as well. And so I would say a lot of that starts with a very specific call to action for the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in a world where attention is becoming shorter and shorter for the customer. And so you need to have a very clear message with a very clear call to action and a very easy fulfillment for the customers coming through. And I think that's lost. If you look at the digital communications in this industry, it is a collection letter that's been pasted into an email platform and is ultimately about this long with maybe a link at the bottom or a phone number at the bottom to call. And ultimately, your customers, your clients' customers don't have the attention span for that. They want to know, what is the message, what's the value that I get, and what's that call to action. And then whether it's a deep link or a online that matches that offer, it's got to be, to your point. I'll check the mark as well, frictionless for the customer.
Well, you got to make it simple for them, right? So I remember early on when we were going into the digital age of collections, a lot of companies were like, well, I'm going to build an app. And I'm going, okay, well, why, right? Like, who wants to download and have a debt collector's app on their phone, whether it be Android or Apple, especially with the quality of the online web interface applications that are available today, right? So I always felt like there was a better way to do it, and reducing the friction as we move from a communication and into a payment module has always been important to me. But what I've found is that as you talk with organizations about deploying a digital strategy, one, they always seem to overlook deliverability. So let me ask some questions kind of down that deliverability channel. But they also, have this difficulty in deployment, and meaning that it's taking them so long to get spooled up and to be able to roll things out. So let me start by asking about the deliverability piece. Like, how are you guys addressing actually getting these messages through to the consumers?
Yeah, and it's I think, and I'm going to probably amend your question a little bit, because I think it's
Sure.
actually two parts. I think it's deliverability, which is a key piece, and then people opening it and then ultimately clicking on it and
Sure.
engaging with it. So, there are a lot of people that can get emails into inboxes, that can get text onto phones, but are you getting that actual call to action? Are you getting people to open up emails? If your delivery rates aren't over 40% in the recovery space, 50% in the collection space, you're doing something wrong. I mean, just point blank. And so that start there. And I think, what's interesting is deliverability needs to be its own KPI. Open rates need to be their own KPI. Click to action needs to be their own KPI. We've been an industry that has been very, very good about managing KPIs for a long, long period of time.
Sure.
And there's an entire set of digital KPIs that ultimately we should be managing as an industry. And at Quanta, that's what we do for people, is manage those key KPIs to make sure that you're actually getting customer engagement, not just putting unread emails into an inbox or a spam folder instead of in the inbox, and texts that are delivered but not engaged with at the same time. And I think really understanding the right cadence and the right message, the right time, all of those things are important to get that digital engagement that you're talking about, Adam, which goes a little bit beyond deliverability there.
No, and you're 100% right. And to circle back to my original statement is, like, you've got this e-commerce funnel, right? I've got my deliverability, I've got my opens, I've got my click-throughs, and I've got my actions, right? So I feel like that it kind of ties back to what we were saying at the beginning, that, like, you have this kind of e-commerce digital approach, because that is what e-commerce ultimately is all about, right? It's about working through that funnel and perfecting your craft in each one of those stages. But onto the kind of the second question, which was more about the timelines to roll something like this out. So if somebody wants to engage, what does it take to actually go from, okay, I want to get started in digital, I'm ready to get started, to I'm actually using a digital collection strategy?
Yeah, with Quanta, it takes a call to us in 5 to 8 weeks. So
Wow.
where we where we spend our time is first, we want to know, each organization's brand and speak to the customers in the way that they speak to them. And so that takes a little bit of time and engagement. And I think then from an IT perspective, we ultimately, take a file from our clients and our customers and then deliver a file back with those results. So it's pretty low lift for most of our customers, which I think, every organization, whether you're at the issuer space or the recovery space, seems to be IT constrained right now. And that's something that we realized as an organization and really tried to make it a low lift for our clients so they can get up and running pretty quickly. I think there is this thought that it will be a massive time period and I'll, miss the boat on digital collections. And so we want to be a very, very quick stand up for issuers or agencies or whomever we're doing this for.
Well, I think companies tend to panic about the IT resources required, and it sounds like from a deliverability perspective, you're probably talking about a couple of DNS record updates and then enabling you guys to do that, because my assumption is that you're the ones that are actually sending the emails and the text messages and everything, and it's really just about connecting the two worlds.
That's exactly right. And those DNS updates allow us to do it in our clients' voices.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Which is incredibly important because the reputation management from a domain perspective, tying into those IP addresses, right? All of that kind of ties together. And I know I'm going a little super nerd here, but I am a super nerd and I live in the DNS world.
Well, I was not expecting that to be the way the conversation headed. And I have an entire technical team that's probably watching this, wishing that they were sitting here instead of me.
Well, there's not that much to it. And I think that's the point that I'm trying to drive across is that, those updates are like a 30-second change. And so in order to enable something like this, it doesn't require this massive technical lift. I don't need my whole IT team to be involved. I need the one guy who manages my domain to be involved, and then my operations people so that they understand the strategies that are ultimately being relayed out to you to leverage, right? Because we're going to have different service level agreements with different creditors, whether it be somebody that we're buying from, or I'm assuming if you're getting direct placements from, first party type creditor situation. So I find that to be kind of an interesting, challenge that a lot of people face, is that they look at this giant IT lift when they go digital collections, because if they've tried to do digital collections on their own, they have experienced a massive lift, right? Because doing this on your own is a massive overhaul or a massive undertaking. So, it feels like you guys are just trying to make it a little bit easier for them, and they get to connect into you, and then you guys run off and take care of the strategies.
And we get to spend our time with the operations and, in some degree, the marketing team, right? So we understand we're speaking in your voice with a call to action that's collection based, which is the operations team. And we bring both of those together and execute. And it's exactly right. Low lift from the IT side, and that's where we get to spend our time, which is, more fulfilling for me. No offense to any IT people out there.
But look, there's two different sides of the world, right? And I think any time that operations can take something and run with it without the requirement of extracting from the limited IT resources that each organization has, enables people to go after something considerably faster, right? And to be able to go to market and to actually start experiencing the benefits of leveraging digital collections faster, right? And with less barrier to entering that side of the industry.
And those benefits are tremendous. I mean, what we're seeing is, 5%, 6% reduction in OpEx, 25% increase in collections. Wow. So there is a enormous population of customers that, issuers and agencies are having trouble speaking to. They may be delivering digital communications, but people are not responding to them. And what's more frustrating is they're throwing calls behind those non-responsive people at the same time, just creating more of an economic stress point in what we're getting to probably be a pretty precarious situation in the economy. So now is a really, really good time to, if you don't have a robust digital strategy, to make sure you get one.
Well, leveraging that 1-2 punch of the digital strategy and having the capability of the phone calls and still leveraging traditional strategies is really cool, right? Because you're not giving up one for the other. You're basically finding the best way to merge your two worlds and create success from it.
And that's what we've said. I mean, we're not digital only.
Mhm.
Digital should be a complement or a leader for your collection strategy. But again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about, finding that optimum channel. So
Mhm.
for some people, phone is that optimum channel. And, I think what's interesting is, when I think about the optimum channel, there's optimum for the customer.
Mhm.
There's also optimum for the organization. And
Mm.
so what ultimately there is a yield-based analysis that makes a call worth it. And so digital also gives you that dynamic to look through your collection strategy. So what's optimum for the customer? What's optimum for the organization? And then you figure out the exact right spot there for digital, for traditional, and everything in between.
That is a very interesting approach to the collections process. Jim, I can't thank you enough for coming on and chatting with me today. I'm going to see you at the CRS conference here very shortly.
You
I hope we
will.
can have a drink and continue this conversation because honestly, I'm intrigued and I want to learn more.
Only if you grow that mustache back. So the first time I saw you, you had the wispiest little tiny mustache that I'd ever seen, and now without it, you look like a child. I was looking for the. I was looking. I should have stipulated that into our interview that we would grow the
And
mustache
I'd
back.
grow it back. Well, I got a little bit of time before CRS. Let me see what I can do.
Yeah, I think you could probably grow one by the afternoon, but I'm not sure.
Well, greatly appreciated, Jim. And like I said, I really do enjoy our opportunities to chat with each other. I look forward to seeing you at CRS. For those of you that
Thank
are
you for having me
watching,
on.
if you want to contact Jim directly, I'm going to put his contact information below so you can reach out and learn more on your own. If you have additional questions that you'd like to see us answer or topics you'd like to see us cover, you can leave those in the comments on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we'd be happy to continue to address those. And if you have additional things you'd like to see us talk about, well, you can put those in the comments below as well. And hopefully I can get Jim to come back and continue helping me create great content for a great industry. But until next time, everybody, thank you so much. And Jim, I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, everybody.